Welcome to another episode of Seeing Them Live, a podcast featuring memorable concert stories from live music fans. Everyone has a concert story, and hopefully, one day, we'll hear yours.
And so we were down in the subway in Chicago singing Amazing Grace, as it were. And it was dead down there. The acoustics, are spectacular. And this man came up to us and he was like, "Was that just the two of you singing?" And we said, "Yeah." He said, "Do it again." And he handed us a business card and it was called Arise Records.
Today's guest is BB from the band BB and the Honey. BB is an American singer and songwriter who has been part of the Chicago music scene for 20 years. Audiences say her voice is a blend of Brandy Carlisle, Janice Joplin, Patsy Klein, Stevie Nicks, and Amelda May. Her powerful interpretations range from blues, funk, soul, classic country to jazz, rockabilly, and classic rock. BB and the Honey have released a new EP of original songs called Reckless Heart, which is available on all major streaming platforms. BB, welcome to Seeing Them Live.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. And I've got a lot of notes here. And when I go through guest forums, I try to find the dates and the venues and stuff. So
Yes.
it's not always 100% accurate, but you could correct me as we go along here. So yeah, we'll talk about your concerts and then get into your music. I mean, you've been recording music for a long time, writing lyrics, playing in bands, and then we'll chat about your most recent effort, this new EP that comes out.
It is available on all platforms as of the last few days.
Yes, I found it on iTunes.
Yeah.
It was all there. But yeah, we'll talk about that. But let's start with Sean Cassidy.
Said no one before ever.
Yeah, no, you were 5 years old, right?
Yes.
And this was a concert out on Navy Pier, which is in Chicago.
Correct.
And from what I found, the date was August 10th, 1979. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about exactly right. Yes.
And I think it went on for like 2 weeks or 10 days, this festival of music, and they had some food there and stuff.
Wow.
And there's all sorts of bands that would play there. I was there actually 2 days later on August 12th. I saw Chicago play there. And my friends and I, we went to Chicago Fest all the time. So you were with your mom. And on your form, you said basically you were in love with Sean Cassidy.
Yes, I was. I think he was the first musician I fell in love with. His feathered hair. The funny thing is, I could barely remember a song he sang.
I've got the album here.
Yes, I had that poster on my bedroom wall, and at that concert, the souvenir that I got, that was probably the best souvenir I ever got at any concert ever, was a laminated Sean Cassidy ring with his face on it.
Nice.
And if anybody can point me in the direction to finding one of those, I'd love to have that again.
Yeah, maybe find one on eBay.
Right?
But yeah, he had this album at the time called Room Service. I don't know if that's the one you were listening to at the time, or
Must have been. Yes.
was your mom a fan too, or she just kind of went along and took you there?
I gotta say, I think she really took it for the team there. I don't know that I would call her a fan of anything that was kind of modern at the time.
Okay.
On Sundays, she was blasting opera, if that's any indicator of where her palate was at. But I must have been so obsessed with him that maybe this was the only way to quiet me down.
Well, I was wondering too, like my mom, when I was young, like 11, she took me to a bunch of concerts, and a lot of times I think she just took me because I wanted to go,
Yeah.
because she was very nice and understanding. Although she did like some of the bands. But did your mom after that take you to any other concerts when you were younger, like before you could drive and stuff?
It's a very interesting observation that you have there that I never thought about. That was a first and a last. I think that was all that she had in the well to give on that front there because I don't ever remember. In fact, the only other concerts I remember her going to after that were coming to my shows.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was it. I spent all the chips right there.
Yeah, because when I would go there, it's like it's general admission. It's like there's benches, standing room.
Benches, I remember.
That must have been quite an adventure for a 5-year-old and the mother going through that crowd. I'm sure it was interesting for her.
Yes,
The things parents do for us, right?
I guess so. Yes, definitely.
So then as your best concert, you put down Mumford and Sons.
Yeah, and actually, it was 2 separate Mumford and Son events that happened to me that are neck and neck for the best show I've ever seen. They did a show very early on, I'm gonna say it was like 2010, at the Abbey Pub in Chicago, before they were even a name, an XRT show. And the Abbey Pub, you probably know the room I'm talking about, super intimate, maybe 400 people. And I had a connection at the time, a friend who worked at the radio station. And she called me last minute. She's like, "You want to come to this show?" And they just blew me away. I mean, I kind of get chills just thinking about it. They were so much bigger than that room. The walls were kind of just reverberating with their energy. It was amazing. And then a few years later, I saw them at Ryman. I had general admission seats. And before I went into the concert, I went and grabbed a bite. It was actually for my day job. I was in Nashville for work, but I snuck away from work to see Mumford. And I ended up befriending a girl who was sitting at the bar. And she said, "You know, the girl who came with me all the way from Texas, she's sick. I have these front row seats. Do you want to sit with me?"
Oh my God.
So that's the kind of horseshoe I carried around with me.
Yeah, 'cause I was gonna ask you one, like, yeah, the Ryman Theater, it's in Nashville. I think it holds what, about a little over 2,000 people, I think I saw the capacity for that. And yeah, I was wondering, well, one, why you were in Nashville, and two, how'd you get front row seats? But you just answered my questions. And so they weren't that they were the main act, obviously.
They were the main act, and they were pretty popular at that time. And it was just this weird serendipity that I befriended this woman. And the way that the Ryman, it's weird because we were technically in row 7, but the way that it works, you can be right up on the stage. So we had the 2 seats in row 7 that felt like row 1. You know what I mean? Because it does this horseshoe shape. And I would have been happy in what would have been row 7, but this was up on the stage. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible when stuff like that happens to you. I remember I was at a concert with my mom seeing ZZ Top at Alpine Valley, which is in Wisconsin, and we had lawn seats, and this guy was his girlfriend, and she had way too much to drink, probably, I think.
Right.
They had seats down in the pavilion, and so he had to leave, and he just happened to walk past us and said, "Does anybody want these 2 tickets?" My mom and I grabbed them and went down there. It was
Nice.
right place at the right time, just kinda like what you were just saying.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
I love those stories. Okay, so you mentioned a couple of Mumford and Sons shows, but I'm gonna put together your most surprising and disappointing involve Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And so usually when we've had people on and they've seen Bob Dylan, it's one of their most popular shows or inspiring or best show, but you're not saying that.
No, and the first time I went to see him, I should say I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Completely inspired by him. Absolutely full respect for the guy and just his sensibility about writing music and lyrics, I should specify. But the first show I went to go see him at was in Tinley Park, early 90s, mid early 90s. And I was a fan at the time. You know, I was excited. He was headlining, but Santana opened for him. And I don't know whose idea that was because I don't think you could get a higher contrast opener. They lit the place up. There were like 40 guys on stage, everybody bringing it. You know, it was an amazing show. Completely stole all the oxygen, even outside. You know, by the time Bob got up there and was mumbling along and he couldn't understand the words, and I was like, gosh, this is pretty disappointing. And I didn't give up on him, you know. I still love him, and I've gone to see him since, and every time I just have felt like I hate to say it, I just have felt like he doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone to see a band where you're like, you could tell they wish more people were there so they don't quite bring the A game? You can feel they're a little miffed or something, and they're sort of dredging through the motions? That's how it felt.
Huh. Yeah, I've seen Santana a number of times. I think that Dylan Santana show was at the World Music Theater at Tinley Park,
Maybe so. Yeah, yeah, Tinley Park for sure.
August 29th, 1993. I have that at.
That sounds right. Yes.
Not that I'm a Deadhead. Some of my friends are. They go see the Dead lots and lots of times. So just kind of by default, I've seen them like 15 times.
Oh, wow.
And every once in a while, it's like, I don't know about that show. They weren't bringing it, at least for me. I've seen them when they're really good, and I've seen them times where it's like, meh,
Yeah,
the parking lot was maybe sometimes
more fun.
exactly. So, Phoebe, I was going to say, like, that I mentioned 1993 for that Dylan and Santana show. I mean, transition into your music career, I guess the start of it, was that around that time? You said you sang backup vocals. You were signed onto a record deal with this hip hop group. And I don't know how to pronounce is it Shmoove or Shmoove?
Sure.
Yeah, because it's Shmoove.
Yes.
And it goes by Shmoove and the family,
First family.
and the guy's name's Corey Cochran.
Yes.
How did that come up? Was that 1993? Because that was, like, the only thing I could find a recording on Discogs was 93, but there's probably other stuff.
I met them, well, to be exact, Martin Luther King Day, 1991. I was a senior in high school, and this girl, Sandra Delgado, who actually is kind of a big singer in Chicago, performer in Chicago, she and I used to sing together all the time. We didn't have school that day. We were like, let's go down in the subway and sing. And so we were down in the subway in Chicago singing Amazing Grace, as it were. And it was dead down there, but the acoustics, are spectacular. And this man came up to us and he was like, was that just the two of you singing? And we said, yeah. He said, do it again and do it again. And he handed us a business card and it was called Arise Records. And we both flipped out like we were found and signed. And it was a really good taste for performance. It was a very good taste at protecting yourself as a musician because we didn't have anything in place. We were signed. We never got copies of anything that we did, but we had a wonderful time. We opened up for bands like CNC Music Factory,
Oh, wow.
Crisscross. I mean, big, big audiences. And the thing that we weren't doing was lip syncing, any of it. So we did, I think it was the Riv that we opened for Crisscross. And they're these poor little children with their clothes on backwards.
Right, right.
And their audio went out and they couldn't lip sync and they were like lost where our audio also went out, but we could kind of roll with it. So I learned a lot about being a performer and it really got rid of all the anxiety I ever used to have. Performance day, I was a wreck usually. And then you throw yourself to the wolves enough. And those were big stages to be a young kid on. So, all in all, really grateful for that experience. But they never gave us a recording. They would take us and we had our hair done and our makeup done and they would drive us around and we had our wardrobe and everything was very glamorous.
Hmm.
That was about the extent of it.
Okay. So were you, like, out on tour? Did they tour around?
No, it was in Chicago. We would play if like a touring act like CNC Music Factory was coming through and playing at like Toto's in Schaumburg. I don't know if you remember that place.
Yeah, I remember that place, yeah.
So we would sometimes play there. They had a good connection. I mean, we were opening up for bands that at the time in that scene were really, really big names. So that was my first real in front of the big crowd kind of experience. Started in Fever.
That's so cool because the Riviera in Chicago, I don't know the capacity, but it holds a lot of people.
It was big.
Couple thousand maybe, I don't know, but that's gotta be a really neat experience.
Hi, this is Doug, producer of Seeing Them Live. We're going to take a short break from this episode to hear from some of our friends.
Hey everybody, it's Ray the Roadie.
And this is Hollywood Mike
With the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast, coming to you from the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66 in Joliet, Illinois.
where once a week we are interviewing local musicians and singer-songwriters, and the podcast itself covers a wide range of topics, including, but not limited to, the history of rock and roll in Chicago, the current state of the scene, and the challenges and opportunities facing musicians today.
So join us every Tuesday for a new exciting episode of the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast.
Hi, I'm Jessica Ann Katina. I've always loved music and surround myself with it every day. I've sung in choirs, took digital musical classes in college, and used to work in radio. To further share my knowledge and experience with others, I created this podcast, Music Notes with Jess, in 2019. I'm so fortunate of the listener growth and hearing back from some of the celebs I discussed in past episodes. That's why now I'm ready to expand. So let's have fun taking weekly music notes of throwbacks, modern hits, and media. Thank you. Talk to you soon on Music Notes with Jess.
What was the last really great rock and roll book you read? How about a good rock and roll documentary? Well, that's why I started the Rock Talk Studio podcast, the place to go for recommendations of new rock and roll books and documentaries. Give me 20 minutes and the Rock Talk Studio podcast will get you caught up on the world of rock and roll books and docs from every possible angle and leave you with a no-doubt decision on where to spend your time and money. Want to know what to read next or which film to add to your watch list? Well, here comes all the top recommendations and hidden gems you don't want to miss. I'm your host, Big Rick. Join me for an exclusive look into what's hitting the shelves and the screens and get ready to rock your reading and viewing list. The Rock Talk Studio podcast, your ultimate guide to discovering the best new rock and roll books and documentaries.
Hi, this is Jamie James on Seeing Them Live. We all have our first concert stories, so please share them. We'd love to hear yours.
Now, back to the show.
You'd listed some other bands that you would write music for or play and write lyrics and such. You'd written Seeing Wonderland,
Seeking, yes.
Seaton, sorry. Okay, Super D,
Yep.
The Jesters, which I heard a couple of the guys in that band are on your current album and play with Phoebe and the Honey.
Correct.
I don't wanted to mention anything about those bands or
Yeah.
what your role was in there, because I know I've seen some video of you play keyboards, and I didn't know if you play any other instruments, and of course you sing.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of unpack them chronologically there, Seeking Wonderland was a project that I started with a DJ, and we were kind of doing world music at the time, sort of dance, early 2000, late 90s. And I forgot there's actually a couple other bands I was in. I was in a band called Stockboy right around that time as well. And Stockboy had one of the bass players from Poi Dog started. I don't know if you remember the band Poi Dog Pondering. He played with
Yeah.
them for a bit, got kicked out of that band, and then started his own thing. And somehow my path and his crossed, and we would write some of the music together for Stockboy. From there, I went on to Super D, which was a big funk band, a drummer, a percussionist, horns. And we would play places like the Double Door and Subterranean in the city and things like that. And I was writing lyrics and melodies with the guitarist there, a guy named Chris Corsell. And, he and I did a lot of our writing. And then from there, I moved on to the Jesters, as you mentioned, Martin Monahan, who is primarily my bass player in BB and the Honey. He also, though, does play horns and helped with writing horn lines in some of these originals. And Jim Beckwith, who plays trombone, was also with me in the Jesters. And the Jesters, just as their name implies, wrote sort of whimsical lyrics, but funk, ska, punk energy. And we would wear costumes and we were crazy. And we would play places, like the Cubby Bear and Goose Island and Hard Rock Cafe downtown, places like this. And at that same time, I had a band that I forgot to mention to you too called Full Moon Vixen. And that was violin and piano and guitar, bass, drums, again, with original music that I was writing. The uniqueness about what's happening with BB and the Honey is I didn't play an instrument before COVID, really. I picked up the piano when all my shows got canceled and just dove in head first. So for the first time in all the years of bringing lyrics and melodies to the table, with this, I was actually able to say, here's the chord progression. Here's what I hear in my head. And not just hope someone in the room could psychically get it.
Yeah.
Which I've been fortunate with the people I surrounded myself with prior to that. We would collaborate and they would just kind of figure out what I was getting at. So it's been a really neat process.
Yeah. I'm not a musician. I played the cornet when I was like in fourth grade or something.
Nice.
But from what I understand, the piano is the instrument to write music to. And maybe like you were just saying, like you can hear something in your head and that kind of helps to get it out onto the piano, at least, maybe.
Yeah, it really helps make sense of things. So if a melody line comes to me, I can hear the harmonies in my head, and being able to play those on the piano helps build the chord structure. I mean, to say it's a useful tool is probably a pretty big understatement. It's very helpful for sure.
Now, I know there's a couple guys from that band, the Jesters, that play in BB and the Honey, and they're on this EP. And when I was reading, might have been on your website, maybe, you say when you guys play out live, you can change the makeup of the band.
Yes.
So they're like 4 people or 7 people. And I was just wondering, do people request that of you guys? How do you decide who shows up to a gig like that?
A lot of times it's a venue or an event that will dictate.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just practicality and space, stage space. So the core 4 band members at this point is Martin Monahan, who I mentioned, who's bass, horns. He was also co-producer. Kevin Ray, who's drummer, he's a lead producer. He did all the mixing. And then Russ Hardick, who's a guitarist. He also collaborated on these and kind of came up with his parts. So the 4 of us are kind of the core. That's usually the instrumentation at a minimum.
Okay.
From there, if there's room and space, we often will bring in another guitarist, a guy named Chris Alvarado, who's also a really good singer. He's in a few other bands, Groovex, and he hosts some jam sessions, Red Hat or Hot Chili Jam. So I should have it straight, but you get what I'm getting at. And when he can, he'll join us, but he lives in the city. And then we can also have horns. So if it's a big stage, like this summer, we're going to be playing Beer Fest in Kenosha, Das Brost Festival. And so we can have the full band for that. And it's a big stage. It's outside. And similarly, we're going to be doing Bacon Fest at Walworth County. So we can have the full band. And at the release party, it's absolutely the full band with all the instrumentation there. And we have a violinist who is phenomenal, and we share her with a bunch of different bands. But since meeting her, she's just been really awesome and loyal. When she's available, she'll sign on, and she's great with her commitments with us. And that's Emily Sabaki, and she's just been really wonderful. She's someone that we work very well together. I will literally whistle the violin part I hear in my head, and she magically makes it beautiful. So it's just very fortunate to be surrounded by such great musicians.
Yeah, because I heard you tell a story in an interview recently how you met her up in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, right?
Yes. So we were actually at a place called the Baker House, which at the time I was playing, they had a speakeasy, and my band was more jazz oriented than kind of reacting to what the market wanted. Right after COVID, it was more like, we're opening our dining room and want live music, And I had been at brunch with my brother at the Baker House, and I was talking about how I really want this band to go more into like a rock vein. That's what I hear in my head. I hear a violin, and I'm going on and on about this. And the next thing I know, she walks over to me and she's like, I couldn't help but overhear course, my brother's laughing because I'm a loud person. He's like, hello, you couldn't help it over here, could you? And so we just became fast friends, and it turned out she was magnificently talented, and she's been involved whatever she can ever since. So just a wonderful addition to things, and just brings such a lovely color to the sound.
Yeah. So it sounds like you guys play up in southern Wisconsin.
Northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, but even all the way into the city, and all the way into like Naperville. And
Okay.
ideally, most of us live in the northwest suburbs or North Chicagoland,
Okay.
but we have some nice roots up in Wisconsin from playing up there as well.
Okay. Yeah. Because I go up there quite a bit, go to Walworth County Fair.
We've played there.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask because it seems like a great place for you guys to play. And then there's this place, I don't know if you've ever played there. It's a smaller supper club on Lake Como. It's called the Mars Resort.
I've heard of it. I have not played there. Old school.
I mean, it's a small stage and it's right on the lake, and it's just a massive party there, but it's family friendly. They've got a little beach. The owner has a pontoon boat. While you're waiting for a table, he takes you around Lake Como. And so we've seen a number of bands there.
Cool.
You should check it out. Yeah, it's called the Mars Resort.
I've definitely heard of it. I absolutely have heard of it.
Yeah, so maybe this summer I'll be able to check you guys out. When we'll talk about how to get a hold of you and stuff. So, Phoebe, you're going to do a song for us, and you're going to do a cover song from Lucinda Williams called Can't Let Go. This is awesome. Let's hear it.
All right. I know, I can't let go.
right. That was awesome. Thanks so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. You guys really own that.
Thank you.
That brings us to this album release you guys have that unfortunately at the recording of this will have already happened, but let's talk about it. You got 4 songs.
Mhm.
Reckless Heart is the name of the album and the title of the first track, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. So we're having the release party on Saturday, April 5th. But don't fret, because I think the formula from here on out is going to be one single at a time. And so we'll have more kind of these. It's a little bit different than just a gig. We really are throwing a party. We've got some wonderful fans/sponsors who've offered complimentary food, and we've got complimentary macaroons by Mama Bear Max, and she's going to put her logo on it. So if you miss the party, which you just might if you're hearing this after, you can probably see pictures, and I'll tell you where you can find those once we get through to a point where we're talking about where to find us. But we also have Elfie Rose Cupcake Emporium that's going to be making all these custom gourmet cupcakes. And we're going to have a free signature drink for everyone who comes. And being BB and the Honey, everybody seems to love our theme. We've got the owners of Nani's Bees who are going to be donating some sort of infused. They're coming up with this whole thing with the mixologists that they're going to have a signature drink for everyone. So that's going to be at Lou's Lounge. And we've got Dave Levitt, who's going to be with AccuTrack Solutions. He's going to be running sound for us. So looking forward to that. I also want to mention that we produced and did the mixing.
Yeah.
Mostly Kevin Ray, the drummer, Martin Monahan, the bass player / many horns, and myself. I co-produced. But the mastering, we used Way Sound, and they did an amazing job, turned it around super fast. They're in Cary. And you may know, if you've heard of Modern Day Romeos, one of the guys from there, he's actually one of the owners of the studio with amazing. Justin's got crazy chops on the keys. He plays with them. So it's been a really nice experience to support local and feel the support from local as well. But like I said, moving forward, the plan is we're going to do a single at a time and maybe a few, but definitely there's 13 tunes altogether. 4 are now out in the world. As you mentioned, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, YouTube, and you can find those. I've got a website, BB, my initials, BB Sings, like what I do.com. Or you can keep up with us on Instagram or Facebook. The only thing is, and you'll want to, this is something design flaw because I wasn't really thinking this far out. You got to use the ampersand for and.
Yes.
And that same is true when you're looking for us on any of these platforms. I don't know what to do about, but yeah. So you got to use BB ampersand the honey, and that will get you to us on Facebook, and that'll get you to us out in the world.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. It does help in the search, but I was able to find it, I think. Initially, I did probably type in and.
I know.
You guys popped up. Yeah, one thing you had mentioned too previously is that you guys kind of recorded this live as much as possible, and then you added the horns
Yes.
and Emery's violin maybe later.
Yes.
Because you guys are kind of known for your live performances, and you wanted to kind of capture that on the record as much as you could.
Yes, we didn't want it to be this overproduced thing where then you go and see them and it's like, ooh, Lord, I thought they were, okay. We really wanted to be demonstrative of our sound. So what you hear on these tracks is what we bring to the table when you hear us live with this instrumentation. So yeah, the way that we recorded it was live, the core 4 of us. So Kevin, Marty, Russ, and myself, we recorded with our headphones right into the board. And then from there, Kevin primarily did those initial mixes. Then we brought the others in to kind of layer on so that it really does sound ideally like what we would sound like live.
Yeah, it sounds great. And there's a range of, I guess I'd call it genres, like I mentioned on the intro. So I'm hearing like country for sure, but also like, I don't know how to put this, like lounge singer, like I characterize it as torchy sounding jazz,
Yeah.
and then you've got the horns and the violin. And so it's really a unique sound. And yeah, sounds really cool.
Thank you.
And I've been interviewing musicians recently, just kind of a flurry of them, but releasing one song like every 6 weeks or so, 8 weeks, or even EPs. I interviewed this guy, a band he has called Muted Circus, and he's telling a story over 10 EPs. Yeah, each EP has 5 songs on it, some instrumental, some vocal and stuff. And he's been doing that for years. Obviously, that's a lot of songs. So yeah, I don't know. It seems to be kind of maybe a trend. Not that I was watching those kinds of things to begin with, but as I've talked to musicians, they're like, yeah, we've been releasing songs every 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a single and then put it together in an album or whatever down the road.
I think there's so much you figure out as you go. And what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me because I feel like from a production perspective, if you've got the songs written and you've got everybody kind of on board to polish them up and get the recording done and get the mixing done and get the mastering done. And then I think from an audience perspective, it's a little more digestible in doses.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to sit down. I mean, God love you if you do. But nobody really is going to sit down and listen to 13 songs from a band they never heard of, right? It's got to be like, you know what? I heard that one track. I like these guys. So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And we didn't do that by intention or design. It was just how things seem to be evolving. So that's good to know that maybe it's a recipe. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm old school, well before streaming and stuff. And so when I hear an album, I start at the first song and I go all the way through. And I know people don't necessarily do that anymore. But yeah, I think it's a cool way. Like you were saying, you could have a party around each one that you release. There's always a release party going on and new music, and then play all these previous songs, originals. And I heard you doing some cover songs as well, right?
Yeah, we do. And a lot of the vocal influence that you mentioned at the top here, the Janice Joplin and Stevie Nicks. So it's a lot of songs that is that my voice lends itself to. I try to think about that in addition to the instrumentation, like what do we kind of have naturally going on there?
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. That Lou's place is up in Northern Illinois area.
Yeah. So Lou's Lounge is think of it kind of like a big speakeasy in the Dole Mansion in Crystal Lake. They've got a really good, big, proper stage. They have a grand piano on that stage. It's a nice room. It's really well done and really well put together and very comfortable. Nice chairs and nice booth vibes.
Where can people find you and listen to your music and find out where you guys are playing and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So the best place to do that's going to be Facebook. We keep that as close to real time as possible. If something lands out of a clear blue sky today, I'm posting about it there and I'm pushing it out to Instagram, or you can keep up with it at bdsings.com as well. But that tends to be more of the big events that are already inked, where the day-to-day stuff that's going on is going to be on the BB and the Honey on Facebook.
All right. Well, this has been so much fun. I think I'm going to go listen to this Sean Cassidy album that I have.
I'm sorry.
And yeah, hopefully we'll see you this summer and look forward to these new songs that are coming out in the near future. So thanks again, BB, for coming on Seeing Them Live.
Great. Thanks for having me, Charles. I had a great time.
That's a wrap for our show. I want to thank today's guests for sharing their concert stories with us. Make sure to check out our show notes at seeingthemlive.com for links to websites, photos, and other artifacts mentioned in the show. I also want to thank my producer, Doug Florzak. The theme music for the show was composed by Doug and is featured on his album, Flagstone. If you have a concert story you'd like to share on our podcast, please visit our website and click on Become a Guest in the main menu. Then fill out the form and click the Submit button. If you seem like a good fit for the show, we'll contact you via email. I guess it's time to head for the exits. We'll see you next time on Seeing Them Live.